Their approach with narrative and building these hub worlds comes from relationship building itself, comes from that of the characters we see and how they interact with one another within this world. So we're going to be talking about the characters of Ellie and Dina in this section, and really think about how it is that those two grow, bond, and much, much more. A relationship prior to exploring here, but they're still obviously in the early stages of their relationship in terms of romantically, so they're still trying to get to know one another as well. And it's this kind of element that I think is really nice. Now, as I mentioned earlier about how Naughty Dog deliver narrative, again, this comes back to the element with Uncharted 4 in Madagascar. It's the moment when Drake, Sam, and Sully are driving together in the Jeep, and when Drake would get out of the car, they would pause the topic of the conversation, and then after that, when Drake re-entered the car, what happened was one of the characters would prompt the other and be like, "Oh, you were saying? What was that you were talking about earlier?" And then it just felt so natural, as if they'd pick up where they left off. The story would stop because you've actually gotten out of the car, but it kept you engaged and meant the drive was engaging not only from a gameplay point of view, but also through that of a narrative point of view. It was so inspiring that even Cory Barlog mentions it was one of the elements he wanted to replicate in terms of God of War, the 2018, in how Kratos and Atreus would talk as well. And you see that as they go in and out of the boat when exploring different parts of their world as well. So this is one of the things that they do very well again, and they build on it in different elements. Now, we mentioned it took place in the Jeep. However, in this game, Last of Us 2, you find that Ellie and a companion are riding a horse together. So slightly different, in terms of a vehicle, but still has the same narrative in terms of plot as they communicate with one another. As you get off, re-enter, their dialogue will go from there. Fantastic, really easy. We'll talk about the horse in terms of traversal of world design in hub world design a little bit as well. But yes, not only that, it's actually about kind of the prompts that you get from exploring the world too. You'll see that when you actually go past certain kind of elements, you'll find that like Ellie will mention she didn't like growing up in like I said, I believe it was Boston from the original, and how it really forced hard times on the people. While Dina kind of had a whole different experience because that's not what she grew up. So she's starting to ask questions, right? And this is, bringing them closer together from understanding each other's past. But for us as players, it's communicating more about who they are, allowing us to get a better sense of really what it is that makes them who they are in terms of this situation, how they both grew up, what were the differences, kind of also building up on the world as well, because it shows that not every city was the same, right? Not every place had the same luxuries, or other places had different kind of problems growing, right? Growing pains, if you will. Not only that do we have these conversations which are prompted on the horse or through what the characters see and are pointed out, but by exploring, you'll have these dialogue prompts over Dina's head where she's mentioning about, say she sees something. There's an example where you go to where was it? I think it was a record store, and she talks about kind of some of the music she'd heard growing up as a kid, but you only know that when the triangle prompt presses up, and then you press triangle. Now, you don't actually have to interact with it, which I thought was a really interesting design choice. And the reason I liked that one was the fact that that's how a dialogue works, by you asking questions. If you think about it, and I'm sure we have all had this conversation with someone where it feels like you're just asking the questions all the time, and it's not a two-way conversation, which becomes very frustrating and also makes you feel like, why are we talking? Why are we participating in this dialogue exchange? And I think what the thing was that I liked about this was, again, you're forced to do it. You don't have to know more. You can just walk past and that prompt fades, Or if you know, role playing as Ellie or want to know more about her character, you can press triangle. And again, it feels more of a two-way conversation. So I like that design choice. Instead of it playing automatically, you have to pry to get the knowledge and the information too. Now, not only that, but you will have, like we talked about earlier, in the main missions, these kind of narrative beats where the characters need to talk to one another. But there's a really nice moment where in the same music store, you go and you find a guitar and Ellie can play a song. I can't remember what song it was. Was it Duran Duran? I'll have to remember. But it was a really nice moment because Ellie's playing it. You learn that this is how Ellie plays it. The mechanic behind it is a nice mechanic. I do not play guitar, so I'm obviously unsure in terms of how easy. I've seen other people on YouTube being able to play actual songs by just cycling through the chords. But like I said, not only is it a nice moment we get to know more about Ellie, she's grown up, she's learned how to play guitar, but we've also seen that Dina really likes that side of her. She likes the kind of creative, she loves the music, and again, it builds up a nice relationship moment, and that was off the beaten path. So these are kind of the elements that build up on the relationship. We talk about how those two talk on the horse, how conversations pause naturally and reignite, prompts, certain different side objectives as well as main objectives will bring up conversations and dialogues between them. So there's a lot there that really helps to build on the narrative. So when you are building, you know, even just an open world or a hub world, all of these elements can help build a relationship, not only tell the story of the world, but tell the story between the characters as well. So yes, a really nice one, and I really did enjoy